Before we dive in, drop a quick hi in the comments. It may seem small, but trust me, it really helps YouTube share this story with more sci-fi fans like us. I'd love to see who's watching. The 112th session of Treaty Review was underway. The amphitheater of the Galactic Council pulsed with idle energy. Delegates from across the spiral arm filled the tiers in a slow swell of color and motion. Holographic banners rippled overhead, each displaying the rotating sigils of the Council's founding species. The sleek obsidian triad of the Krell, the blue-plated spiral of the Dravari Ascendancy, the crystalline branch of the Shandari Union. Councillor Hyrosk of the Krell leaned forward, clicking his twin mandibles in measured boredom. If the human delegation insists on pressing Article 9 to C, they must clarify the orbital jurisdiction of sub-commercial lanes between exopoints F4 and F7 within the Fienne corridor. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Most of it was procedural noise, a symphony of political posturing, stale revisions, and layered ambiguity. At the central podium, Councillor Remek of the Shandari rotated his translucent eyes, a gesture of impatience. Earth's delegation has not submitted updated coordinates for over 6 cycles. Perhaps they have finally learned to choose silence over stubbornness. He didn't laugh. Shandari never did. But his tone carried the unmistakable curl of condescension. A low chime rang out from the dome's perimeter. A standard signal. Incoming transmission. Routine. Likely a clerical feed. A dozen species ignored it, until the lights died. The entire dome dimmed to black. Holograms sputtered. Environmental lighting dropped to null. The artificial gravity faltered for half a second, just enough for every delegate to feel weightlessness scrape across their spines. A single projector activated at the center of the chamber. Its beams sliced through the dark like a blade. Then silence. The image that formed was not filtered through Council protocol. It did not carry the watermark of the diplomatic registry. It bore the Earth Standard Transmission seal. Cold, sterile, unforgiving. A man appeared. Chancellor Damien Stewart stood tall, clad in an immaculate black uniform devoid of ornament. No medals, no flags. His gaze was steady, lips set in iron. "This is Damien Stewart, Chancellor Representative of the United Earth Strategic Command," he began. The words dropped like stone into water. "Effective immediately, the United Earth government severs all diplomatic ties with the Galactic Council. All human personnel have been ordered to evacuate, and all communication with Council structures will cease upon conclusion of this transmission." Delegates straightened. Whispers scattered like insects. Several leaned forward in disbelief, their augmentations flashing data pulses into the void. The feed remained solid, real. "The Treaty of Galactic Integration," Stewart continued, "was never ratified. We have obtained full documentation proving that the foundational species of this council manipulated procedural records, obstructed Earth's political voice, and maintained our presence under false pretense for strategic exploitation." He did not blink, not once. "Your simulations of equality were lies. Your votes, coordinated theater. Your partnership, fraud." A Krell advisor rose from his seat, gesturing frantically to the technical staff lining the outer deck. "No reply feed," came a clipped voice in Dravari dialect. "Channel is locked." Stewart's tone never shifted. "We will not negotiate. We will not seek restitution. The Council's structure is fundamentally compromised. This is our final address." He took a breath. "Remember this moment, not as the end of diplomacy, but as the moment you revealed what you truly are." The image cut to black. Nothing followed. For 7 seconds, nothing moved. The galaxy held its breath and realized Earth had just stopped exhaling. Then the silence thickened. Not confusion, not fear, recognition. They understood what had just begun. Ambassador Lycor of the Tillin, a towering humanoid species with bark-textured skin and photoreactive veins, rose in disbelief. "Is this a rogue transmission?" His voice cracked. The Council's AI assistant did not respond. The broadcast system had not flagged the feed, because it had not passed through any of the Council's communication arrays, which meant it came from inside. Another chime. One of the Krell's lower diplomatic officers shouted across the chamber. The human embassy on Palion Prime has initiated evacuation protocols. Their entire station just went dark. Earth's delegation hall on Shandari 9 is gone, came another voice. Auto-destruct sequence. Clean collapse. No casualties. Where is their fleet? Panic flickered behind even the most composed faces. Aid holograms reactivated, but none could reach Earth's networks. Every diplomatic relay, every interspecies comms node, every co-authenticated protocol, dead. In sector after sector, human ships vanished from sensor logs. Not through hyperspace burns, not through jump flashes. They simply ceased to be visible. Camouflage, but not the kind anyone recognized. Their sensors didn't fail. The humans had made themselves irrelevant to detection itself, not hidden, but untrackable by design. Councillor Voron of the Dravari turned in place, his elongated arms twitching. His species, known for predictive behavioral modeling, couldn't compute the scenario. This is not retaliation, he muttered, mostly to himself. It's orchestration. The central hologram flickered again, briefly. Some flinched, but it was only the Council's core AI system reasserting control. A futile act. One of the assistants at the edge of the chamber, a Yggdrasi technician with a split-lobe cranium and 4 ocular nodes, pulled up system logs on a floating console. They've cut themselves out, he said. Every shared database, every relay. It's not a block, it's deletion. The human presence is being erased. The Tillan ambassador pressed his palm to the side of his neck, a reflexive, self-calming gesture among his species. How did they do this so fast? No one answered. For a moment, Councillor Hirosk stared at the empty space where Stwart's image had stood. They knew, he said flatly. They planned for this, for years. The chamber convulsed into noise. Some shouted for emergency sessions. Others demanded immediate contact with Earth. A handful insisted on martial response. The Shandari remained silent. Then a final update flashed across the diplomatic status feed in the center of the chamber. Its display, designed to monitor the presence and condition of every registered species delegation, updated in real time. The Earth registry disappeared, not flagged, not disconnected, deleted. The console reset with a soft chime, and the human seal faded to null. Around the chamber, the most powerful empires in the galaxy sat frozen. And the only species no one could reach, the one species they had always seen as predictable, had just become the only thing anyone could think about. The Galactic Council had been silenced. Earth hadn't walked away. And far below Earth's equatorial belt, behind layers of shielding and silence, a door unlocked. A magnetic seal disengaged with a low hiss, and the reinforced doors of Sublevel 9A slid open. General Marcus Reddick stepped inside, boots hitting the polished black composite floor with deliberate rhythm. The corridor was silent, not by oversight, but by design. Hades' installations didn't tolerate ambient noise. 2 security sentinels flanked the entrance to the debriefing chamber. Their visors tracked Reddick for a half-second before standing aside. He didn't acknowledge them. He never did. Inside, the room was clinical. 1 long table of matte steel. 8 chairs, only 2 occupied. Walls lined with layered quantum shielding and counter-intrusion lattice. No ports, no exposed interfaces. The light source, a single recessed band around the ceiling perimeter, cast a flat, neutral glow. Director Flint Ward stood at the far end of the room, back to the table, arms crossed behind him. In front of him floated the translucent image of a live decrypted report, Project ID, Phantom Archive 17. General, Ward said without turning, we've confirmed the final checksum. The leak is genuine, no anomalies. Source trace complete. Reddick took his seat across from Lieutenant Commander Yelena Das, who was reviewing a secondary packet on a retinal HUD. She gave a brief nod, then redirected her focus to the main feed. The projection expanded, filling half the room. A cascade of embedded audio logs, translated memos, and sealed transmissions began to scroll, each stamped with validation keys from at least 3 non-human sources. Ward gave a short nod and began to speak. The Treaty of Galactic Integration, never signed. Never passed formal ratification by the Inner Council. The ceremonial vote held 32 cycles ago. Staged. The official registry you've all seen. Doctored. The entire framework is a fabrication, used to grant the illusion of legal parity. Earth was never admitted as a full member, just tolerated, strategically positioned, managed. Reddick didn't flinch. He leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table as the report shifted to a playback clip. A grainy holofeed showed a closed-door session between 2 high-ranking alien counselors, Archon Vrexil of the Krell, his exoskeletal plates clicking faintly with each word, and First Liaison Thasser of the Shandari, whose crystalline limbs shimmered faintly under stress-reactive pulses. Useful as they are, the humans cannot be allowed proximity to infrastructural tiers, Thasser said. Vrexil replied, tone sharp but indifferent. Their manufacturing scale is advantageous. Their ships fill gaps. They move faster than most and die slower than expected. That is their role. Nothing more. Another file opened. A private memo from the Dravari Ascendancy's War Protocol Board, signed by a committee of 12, all identified by biometrics and retinal glyphs. Line 14, Section D. Human diplomatic access should be restrained through procedural bottlenecks. Technologies rated Tier 4 and above must remain inaccessible. Any anomaly in Earth's strategic behavior should be redirected using internal council arbitration delays. Ward paused the feed. His voice dropped. It wasn't oversight, it was control, and it started the moment Saul signed the charter. More logs surfaced, a dossier of council-wide voting sessions where Earth's delegate, sometimes a junior representative, other times even a proxy, cast ballots that matched outcomes already logged in pre-session simulations. The actual decisions had been drafted days earlier, during encrypted meetings among founding species. Another clip. Surveillance data from the interior of a diplomatic archive vault on Reskar Prime, secretly accessed by Hades field agent Kellen Bragg under false credentials. It showed a Dravari assistant classifying Earth's participation logs under an internal designation. Observer status, conditional, strategic buffer. Not a member, not even a partner, just a fuse, waiting to be spent. Reddick's tone cooled. A buffer species, kept close when needed, left behind when not. The projection shifted again. This time, an excerpt from a private roundtable time-stamped 14 cycles ago. A Shandari senator, voice filtered through phase compression for anonymity. Give them enough protocol to feel equal, enough bureaucracy to keep them busy. Let them build logistics, let them feel useful. But they will not sit at the core, not now, not for another 100 years. No one spoke. DOS deactivated her HUD, her expression blank. That line was repeated in 10 separate strategic models, another 100 years. They were planning generational containment. Reddick stood slowly. His voice was quiet. They could have picked any species to underestimate, but they chose the one that never forgets. Ward nodded slowly. The leak dropped 52 hours before Stwart's broadcast. All cells were alerted. Implode resolution moved from dormant to armed within 6 minutes. Any pushback from the UN Assembly? Ward turned fully to face him. None. Every seat on the Security Directive Board voted green. They saw the full leak. Reddick's mouth tightened. He watched as the final slide on the projection loaded, a council-wide integration map with Earth's node pulsing in red. Not at the center, not even part of the web, but tethered to it like a secondary relay. An annotation glowed beneath. Human participation was never required, only their labor. Ward ended the feed. The room dimmed. For a long moment, no one spoke. All we ever built, he said quietly. We built while they pretended to give us permission. Reddick stepped forward, eyes on the fading projection. And now, he said, we show them what we built when they weren't looking. No one moved, no one raised their voice. The betrayal was complete, and the truth could no longer be denied. Earth believed in the Council, played by the rules, waited its turn, but the game was rigged. Now they weren't playing anymore. They were rewriting the rules. The fallout didn't echo in public. It rippled in silence. While the Council scrambled to interpret Earth's Vanishing Act, deeper mechanisms turned underground. And far beneath the surface, in a facility that didn't exist, something older than diplomacy began to move. Hades, subterranean complex. Theta 6 wasn't on any map, not even Earth's own secure network. Inside its core, a chamber sealed with a hiss of vacuum lock, cutting itself off from every frequency band within 100 meters. No one spoke. The steel-lined walls pulsed with inductive memory shielding, the kind installed in only 2 places on the planet. At the far end of the chamber, the platform rose from beneath the floor, carrying a single figure. General Gregory Stucker stepped off before it reached its full height. He was built like infrastructure, tall, squared, unmoving, broad shoulders and cropped gray hair like the edge of an old blade. His expression was carved into stone, every step measured, every breath spent with purpose. Stucker had survived the Andromedan proxy war, the Drovic uprisings, and the Ceres collapse, not because he was lucky, but because he didn't believe in improvisation. The officers at the table straightened. No salutes, not here. No ranks were spoken in Theta 6. Everyone in this room already knew their place. Stucker reached the center and turned to face them. 8 men seated, each a branch lead across the Earth strategic infrastructure grid: military ops, cyber intel, trade surveillance, orbital engineering, AI ethics compliance, satellite command, psychological influence ops, and diplomatic forensics. All silent. He lifted his hand. A holographic interface sprang to life above the table, rotating slowly. It showed the galactic spiral from a human-centered perspective. Not symbolic. Tactical. Implode resolution is now active, Stucker said. You've trained for this. You've prepped for it. You've simulated every version of it. Now you will execute it. He motioned across the hologram. Overlay all primary sabotage vectors. Lines erupted across the projection. They branched out from Sol, spidering through hundreds of commercial zones, political corridors, and gravitationally locked trade routes. Systems blinked to red: Nexus 7 traffic corridors, Ulan Gate AI hub, Shandari communications spine, the Dravari proxy relay system, and dozens more. This operation has one core principle, Stucker continued. Improvisation is failure. He paused, letting the silence do its work. Every move has been calculated, every variable predicted, every cell embedded for decades, their positions, their timing, their targets, all synchronized. The satellite command lead, Colonel Baer, adjusted his retinal HUD. SatLink kill grid is aligned for 23 nodes. Final confirmation received from operators embedded at Krell Beacon Array 1, Yitari Drift Relay, and Nenshara Net Core. We're green across all constellations. Execute Tier 1 sleep commands at 040 UTC, Stucker ordered. Targeted sector-wide failure, minimal scatter, blame it on entropy. Next to him, Commander Henrik Voss of the Psychological Influence Division leaned forward. Civilians will panic fast. Their local media cycles are built for reaction. If we destabilize their non-human reassurance protocols... Stucker cut him off with a look. Do not inject narrative until gridlock sets. Our strength is in their disorientation. Confusion first, then fear, then silence. From the right, Major Elroy Danton of the AI Ethics Compliance Unit keyed in a layered map of intelligence frameworks used by the Council's civil networks. It highlighted interspecies-controlled planetary AIs dependent on human-developed predictive subroutines. Over 79 planetary systems use human Mark 7 logic trees for civil regulation. We seeded their feedback cores with sleeper commands 13 years ago. Once we trigger the cascade, 29 of those systems will begin rejecting centralized instructions as recursive contradiction faults. The rest will start consuming processing power on irrelevant loops. Administrative paralysis inside 20 hours. Stucker nodded. Trigger on phase Delta protocol. Do not engage backups unless primaries stall. On the left side of the table, Colonel Ramirez from Orbital Engineering brought up structural schematics. 9 trade megastations in outer Krell space use human-built torque stabilizers. If our agents decouple gyroframes while deactivating magnetic locks, they drift off axis, Stucker finished. Chaos without a single explosive. The hologram split now into 4 quadrants. Each quadrant showed a live visual of a sleeper cell waiting, in a maintenance hangar, in a transit port, in a consular station, and inside a deep orbital scan array. Each agent's face was calm, unremarkable, hidden in plain sight. Stucker lifted a small black device from his pocket. A communicator, obsolete by today's standards, intentionally. No traceable signal, no embedded AI. He pressed his thumb against the copper panel. The communicator pulsed once. Code phrase 1 transmitted, he said. They're awake now, but their footsteps won't echo. Their work leaves no fingerprints. On the screen, one of the agents shifted slightly. That was the only visible reaction. The rest remained motionless. Stucker returned the device to his coat. Each unit is bound to an activation protocol determined by local environmental or political triggers. Temporal offsets will prevent pattern recognition. Every strike appears random. None of them are. A long silence followed. Then Director Vaughn, head of strategic integration, cleared his throat. How long before they realize it's us? Stucker turned back toward the center of the room, arms behind his back. They already suspect. But by the time they confirm, it won't matter. The hologram zoomed in on the Shandari spine, a communication and trade corridor so tightly interwoven with human-built infrastructure that its collapse would split council data flow across 6 systems. They laughed at our caution, mocked our paperwork, delayed us with process. All the while, we embedded redundancy, flexibility, counter-interference layers. They built towers to be seen. We laid foundations to be felt, only when the ground gives way. He pointed to the final quadrant, a section labeled Zero Visibility Initiative. It contained the locations of 8 untraceable human stealth fleets, already repositioning through blind gravity wells. Once the signals go out, Stucker said, we disappear from the grid. No ID, no ping, no reply signatures. The Council will spend months sweeping shadows, and all they'll find is what we left behind. A final command appeared on the hologram's lower tier. Resolution phase initiated. Stucker's voice lowered. We do not gloat, we do not broadcast, we do not announce. He paused. We dismantle, we erase. And when they finally understand, we're already gone. And just like that, the table dimmed. The officers rose and left without a word. No salutes, no applause. Only the sound of orders already in motion. As the chamber emptied and the command table dimmed into darkness, the first signals had already reached deep space. There were no alarms, no broadcasts, just a ripple, quiet, calculated, and irreversible, spreading outward through infrastructure the galaxy had long taken for granted. By the time the stars noticed anything was wrong, the war had already started, and no one knew they were in it. The docking rings over Tarsis Station blinked red for the 3rd time in under 10 minutes. Commander Valier Droth paced along the observation deck of the orbital traffic control tower, his 3 ocular stalks twitching in different directions. His species, the Lethari, were known for their meticulous adherence to regulation, a necessity on trade hubs like this one. But right now, regulation was breaking down in real time. Sector 8 is out of sync, his operations chief reported, mandibles clicking with restrained panic.
Freighter Davana Rex, drifted 7 degrees off approach vector. Gravlane markers are not responding. Droth squinted through the viewport. Beyond the reinforced plasteel, dozens of cargo vessels hung in a loose scatter pattern. Engines idle, maneuvering thrusters firing sporadically. The synchronized ballet of orbital commerce had devolved into an awkward stutter of hesitation and course correction. "What happened to central guidance?" Droth demanded. "Still transmitting."
But the timestamps are inconsistent. There's a 3-second delta between command and response. That was impossible. The delay might as well have been a lifetime. On a station handling over 600 inbound and outbound vessels per cycle, it was lethal. Droth slapped the intercom. "All dockmasters, lock down mooring arms, suspend clearance queue. No one moves until I authorize. This is a temporary shutdown." No reply came. He blinked, then checked the relay feed. All outgoing messages from the tower were being acknowledged, but nothing was returning. "Override the command stack," he barked. "Already tried," said his chief, voice tight. "Response lag is getting worse, and, sir, maintenance drones are detaching from hull rails, without command input." Outside the viewport, several drones floated off course, their path arcing gently away from their programmed lanes. Some turned in slow circles. Others began drifting toward the inactive bulk freighters, sensor arms limp. This isn't a glitch. It's something hiding in the wires. Across the spiral, on the financial core world of Veskar Prime, panic took a different form. The Dravari High Banking Consortium, an insectoid species of lean silicate chitin bodies and fractal eye clusters, operated the most powerful transaction engine in the known galaxy. Each transfer processed through their system passed at speeds measured in microbursts. Until now. "System just swallowed 9 trillion units, said Crass Vel, senior auditor of the Central Ledger Protocol. "Gone. No transaction trail, no reversal flag, no fraud marker. It's like it fell off the ledger." His supervisor, Director Kaleem Thor, rotated one of his 4 neck joints, antennae stiff. "Run full system analysis. Halt all transfers above Tier 3 security." "We can't. The interface is desyncing. Commands are bouncing between local and deep node verification layers." "You mean it's looping?" "No, I mean it's arguing with itself. The ledger is fragmenting. Behind them, emergency lights turned amber. Access to reserve vaults dropped offline. For the first time in Dravari financial history, the Exchange Core requested a manual restart. Something not required since the first cycle collapse, over 4,000 years ago. Protocols don't even exist for this. The system wasn't designed to fail. In the Mir expanse, communication satellites began winking out one by one. The Shandari Deep Relay Grid, a crystalline neural species that housed their data systems inside memory-grown biostructures, reported cascading blackout zones across their interplanetary net. No intrusion alerts, no hardware failures, just silence. The Shandari Chancellor's aide, Sev, moved quickly through the light-soaked corridors of the Kalira Signal Hall. "Chancellor Viril," she said, "we've lost full-spectrum relays on sectors 12, 14, and 18. Remaining grids are showing latency upticks across the compression layers." Viril's form shimmered under the bioluminescent canopy of his residence. He had no mouth, but his voice was clear through the translator node embedded in his cranial crystal. "Has the human liaison responded?" "Offline." Viril paused. "How many of our nodes are built on human hybrid cores?" Sev hesitated. "All of them." Viril didn't reply. He didn't need to. The realization dimmed his glow more than any external failure ever could. Orbiting Raikan V, Commander Aishan Maruk gripped the console edge as gravity blinked out for the second time in less than an hour. The crew of Orbital Docks Control Tower Kappa 3 floated against harness lines as warnings screeched in 6 languages. "Docking clamps are disengaging at random," reported Ensign Yali, voice shaking. Magnetic latches on Bay 4 released while the Kessari Dawn was halfway through cargo transfer. "Give me visual." The central display lit up. Dozens of personnel were drifting across the inner bay, crates colliding in 0G, emergency rails flaring with containment fields. Emergency overrides aren't responding. Internal drones are reclassifying hull targets as non-authorized objects. Marek pulled himself toward the command chair and slammed a security key into the override panel. Lock down everything. Quarantine protocol. Nobody leaves. Nobody docks. But sir, crews are stranded. I said quarantine. This isn't a malfunction. This is invasion. Lock it down. Now. The transmission log fed static. Each attempt to contact Planetary Command returned. No route available. Marek's heart pounded against his ribs. They were cut off, not attacked, disconnected. Inside the Galactic Council's crisis chamber, Counselor Atris Dar of the Uran Confederacy, a lithe, avian species with translucent wings and glassy black eyes, reviewed a cascade of incident reports, each one blinking red with priority override. Supply lines halted in 3 sectors. Civil AIs requesting manual authentication. Banking systems lost billions in unsecured transfers. Port authorities issuing emergency lockdowns without protocol. Beside him, Counselor Briss 10 of the Krell stood rigid, his carapace mottled with dark stress bands. Is this an act of war? By whom? Atris snapped. No weapon has been fired, no declaration made, but infrastructure is falling apart like it's being unraveled from the inside. Briss clenched his claws. It can't be coincidence. These systems, they don't just collapse. No, Atris murmured, eyes narrowing. They don't. A third display flashed open, a video from Rikan V. Hundreds of dock personnel spinning helplessly in zero-G. Lights strobing, docking clamps releasing without cause. A man's voice, in standard trade dialect, issued one final order before the transmission cut. Quarantine protocol. We are under cyber attack. Repeat. Do not respond to requests from Orbital Net. It's compromised. 10 turned toward Atris. This is coordinated. Atris stared at the screen, then to the scattered reports across the holotable. No pattern, different species, different systems, no shared AI backbone. A silence stretched, then he whispered, as if naming a ghost. Except Earth. 10 shook his head. No. They've gone dark. They wouldn't. He stopped. They both knew better. The council chambers remained lit, but the tension had turned the room cold. 10 consular aides entered carrying reports. No two described the same malfunction. No region repeated another's symptom. But the timing was precise. And the fear? Identical. Across the galaxy, the systems that moved trade, calculated worth, organized orbit, balanced resources, delivered fuel, filtered traffic, stabilized populations, all of them in scattered, unconnected clusters, were flickering. None of them blamed Earth, not yet, because no one could prove it. That was the brilliance of it. The war had already started, and no one could see the battlefield. Elsewhere, the quiet spread into colder systems. The cryolabs on Meraxis Theta began shutting down one by one. Inside Research Sector 3, thermal regulators dropped below safe parameters, triggering automatic lockdowns on every stasis unit containing volatile plasma tissue. Dr. Vile Rin, Chief Systems Overseer and a member of the Thalari, a methane-breathing species with translucent skin folds and branching neural crests, rushed between darkened consoles, his breath clouding the air inside his pressurized mask. "Where are the override codes?" he demanded, 3 digits tapping erratically across a dead interface. "Offline," replied Technician Murr. "Primary systems are locked out. The neural sync bridges aren't responding. Try the manual stack. They were designed for emergency bypass, but only with human cipher keys." Dr. Rin froze. "We don't have those keys?" "No one does," Murr confirmed. Dr. Rin turned slowly toward the outer glass wall. Beyond it, a row of stasis pods had already gone dark. 10 years of interstellar bioengineering, gone in seconds. No breach, no warning, just absence. Like the hands that once steadied everything had been withdrawn, without protocol, without sabotage, just gone. 3 sectors away, the ICV Firus Haldron, a Shandari-registered merchant freighter, rotated slowly at the edge of a dead corridor. Behind it, 8 other commercial vessels hovered in formation, engines quiet, their transponders blinking red. Captain Osric Devrin, a wide-framed Solarian with iridescent scales and deep-set amber eyes, stood at the navigation platform, reviewing the 6th failed attempt to plot a jump vector. "Again," he ordered. His second-in-command, Kel Var, shook his head. "Same error. Pathfinding recursion loop. The nav AI can't lock onto gravitational markers. That corridor's been active for 40 cycles." Kel glanced at the diagnostic stream. It used Terran-coded harmonics for stabilization, low-frequency grav beacons with embedded correction algorithms. They're silent now. Or worse, they're rejecting our pings. The comms system flashed. Another ship, the Rethic Dawn, requested updated coordinates. Devrin didn't reply. What would he say? They weren't stuck. They were adrift in a galaxy that no longer recognized its own lanes. At the heart of power, the Council began to unravel, and the chamber felt smaller now. Not physically. The dome was still vast, lined with polished obsidian and starlit crystal arches, but in presence, the room that had once commanded the policies of 1,000 systems now echoed with clipped voices and overlapping accusations. Councillor Thren Salk of the Kaltari Dominion slammed a clawed hand on the table. His elongated skull plate rippled with vascular stress lines. "I have 3 worlds with power regulation failures. Agricultural drones are dumping nitrogen instead of filtering it. Civil control AIs are rerouting food convoys through inactive stations." Councillor Varn Isik of the Shandari tilted his gleaming head. The underlying systems weren't ours. They were integrated. "Integrated by who?" Salk snapped. No one answered. Councillor Darvek Ol of the Uran Confederacy adjusted his wings, eyes locked on the growing incident logs. "We relied on their efficiency, their modular design, their ability to scale infrastructure without adding complexity." Across the room, Councillor Jarun of the Dravari rose slowly. For decades, he had dismissed the humans as enthusiastic technicians, reliable but primitive in perspective. Now his tone was stripped of arrogance. "We didn't just use their systems. We designed our networks around them, not for show, for function." Councillor Nephron Ul of the Krell, always reserved, always silent, finally spoke. "Earth was not a partner." His mandibles clicked once. They were the gear no one saw, until the machine stopped turning. Silence fell. Even the automated stenographer paused. They all felt it, the gravity of the truth settling where denial had once stood. Not an empire, not an army, a presence. And now, a void. In a secure orbital shell above the shadow line of Ultros 9, far beyond sensor range, General Gregory Stucker stood before a recessed panel of matte black glass. No insignia, no identification, just data. The display bloomed with dozens of pulsing sigils, real-time markers from across Council space, each one linked to an activated sabotage point. Dock failures, AI stutters, grav lane disconnections, satellite fragmentation, power distribution anomalies. Below it, a progress bar moved with mechanical calm. Operational disruption. Progress. 47%. Behind him, Commander Roger Brandt approached, his face partially lit by the glow of the panel. "Shandari Prime just declared a planetary emergency. Their civil network is stuck in a logic loop. 17 million inhabitants are without predictive infrastructure." Stucker didn't turn. "Councillors still think they're being hacked," Brandt added. "They're not," Stucker said. "They're experiencing what happens when you forget who built the system." A long pause followed. "They used our systems like scaffolding, built towers on them, but they never asked what would happen when we walked away." On the panel, a red marker blinked twice. System, Yutari Orbital Relay Grid. Status, Offline predicted time to intersystem communication collapse, 13 minutes. Brandt glanced at the numbers. Should we accelerate phase 2? Not yet. Stucker's eyes didn't leave the glass. Let them look for something to shoot. He paused, eyes still locked on the panel, and realized there's nothing left to hit. Back in the council chamber, the emergency conclave spiraled into noise again. Reports flooded in from the outer colonies. Lost resource ships, blackout zones, farming worlds unable to deploy terraforming drones because initialization keys were failing check some validations. Councillor Raylan Mox, a minor diplomat from the Sindel trade clade, a species known for their booming voices and bloated, gas-filled vocal sacs, finally exploded. They built this, all of it, right under our noses, not by force, but by participation. They looked harmless because they cooperated, and we mistook that for weakness. Several others tried to interrupt, but he raised a thick, webbed finger. They didn't conquer us. They became necessary, and now we're learning what happens when necessity becomes absence. The chamber fell still again, because he wasn't wrong. Outside the dome, across the stars, every system that relied on Earth's quiet precision, every corner that once received just enough help to run smoothly, now realized how much of that help had never been theirs to begin with, and how long Earth had been watching, planning, waiting, not to rise, to disappear, and let the galaxy collapse under the weight of what it forgot was borrowed. At Dock Row 11 on Vandross Station, the riot began, and spread through the lower sectors in less than an hour. Cargo manifests had stopped sinking days earlier. Luxury shipments from the MER systems never arrived. Critical food imports from Jernak failed checksum verification at the station's intake ports and were quarantined indefinitely. By the time the security grid flagged the third looting attempt, hundreds of traders, crew members, and local dockhands had already torn open 5 sealed bays with improvised plasma cutters. "Shut it down," barked Port Marshal Raycon Lace, a broad-shouldered Janari with armored skin folds and retractable jaw spines. "Seal outer levels. Dump gravity if you have to." His deputy shook his head. "Emergency overrides unresponsive. All command access tied to provisioning nodes. Those ran through human stabilizers. We can't isolate the grid." Through the station's forward viewport, the once organized port lanes of Vandross were chaos. Dozens of haulers hovered out of alignment, refueling claws disengaged, drones circling with no destination. Marshal Lace watched a civilian transport turn on itself, no navigation control, and clip a maintenance pod, sending both into a slow spiral. The riot hadn't peaked yet, but it would. Suroth Prime was a marvel of orbital engineering, a city station in perfect sync with the tides of a gas giant, layered in solar shielding and powered by lattice reactors suspended in the lower thermosphere. Until the lights went out. Inside Evacuation Tower C, thousands pressed into a single corridor, bodies shoulder to shoulder beneath flickering emergency glyphs. Panic wasn't new to Suroth, but this time there were no broadcasts. No AI projections guiding traffic, no evacuation path, no direction, no orders, just one phrase, looping endlessly through the static. Capacity exceeded, capacity exceeded, capacity exceeded. Relindor, Sector Chief for Infrastructure Integrity, elbowed his way through the crowd until he reached the override node, bolted to the evacuation rail. No response. The station's civil AI had entered loop mode, locking down non-priority systems and freezing all updates. The prioritization stack, once optimized by Earth-built prediction logic, now ran contradictory directives. Thousands were marked as essential, and none were cleared to leave. Relindor opened a side panel and pulled the manual lockout clamp. The cable snapped off in his hand. In the outer rim territory of Koros Drift, the automated defense array of Bastion Outpost Theta 9 failed to register the arrival of 6 pirate skiffs until the third one began cutting into the perimeter wall with thermal drills. Colonel Narek Von of the Krell Defense Corps, lean exoskeletal frame reinforced with phase steel armor plating, charged down the command hall as static bloomed across the entire tactical display wall. They're inside the outer array, his second reported. Auto turrets didn't even spool. They didn't trigger on target acquisition? No, sir. AI's in passive scan mode. System log says it's waiting for a human override token. Vaughn stopped cold. The override token, Terran-coded, invisible, and always instant, had never failed. Until now. It was as if the key had been removed and the door left locked. Forever. That failsafe had always been invisible. Automatic. Now, it was just gone. On screen, the pirate skiffs cut deeper, a slow, methodical burn. No resistance. No deterrence. On the industrial world of Carthon 7th, Sector 11's manufacturing plant came to a grinding halt just before second shift. The central production AI had entered containment mode. No alerts, no commands, just a full system lock to avoid a contradiction error. Jaris 10, planetary production chief, a thick-necked Ilari with a reinforced spine crest and pale blue skin, stared at the console as the last fabrication arm froze mid-sweep. Why aren't we redirecting? System doesn't accept new instructions, answered his technician. Core logic tree is looping validation conditions. It's checking itself against a missing parameter. What parameter? The tech didn't answer. The line went silent. Screens faded to black. Carthon 7 didn't just stop producing. It stopped deciding how to produce. In the Galactic Council chamber, the emergency beacon pulsed again. 23 flashes in 4 minutes, each one from a different star system. Councillor Arvek Thol of the Vascari Union, thick-scaled, four-eyed, and twice dismissed for warmongering in previous sessions, leaned forward. "This is sabotage," he snarled. "Systemic, coordinated, ongoing." Councillor Charven of the Dravari growled, "And yet not a single entity has taken credit." "That's what makes it worse," Thol snapped. "You don't brag about accidents. This is design." Councillor Thren Salk, voice thin but focused, turned toward the central chamber dais. "If Earth built this web, if they laced every corner of our systems with dependencies and trapdoors, then we are not facing isolation." He paused. "We are facing war." Murmurs swept the dome. Councillor Varric Ols of the Torval Compact stood. "Then let's act like it. A joint operation. Full mobilization. Identify any Earth installations still active. Launch immediate strike operations. Disable whatever remains of their infrastructure." The room stilled. Then Councillor Atris Dar rose slowly from his seat. His wings folded close to his back. His voice cut through the air, cold and steady. "Strike what?" No one answered. Dar took a step forward. "They're not in orbit. They're not in council chambers. They've cut every signal, erased every node, collapsed every route. We don't know where their fleets are. We don't know if they're watching. We only know they're gone, and everything's falling without them." Ols opened his mouth. "Strike who, Varric? Strike what?" The chamber fell silent. Outside, the stars kept pulsing red, and the Council, the most powerful body in known space, was not under siege. It was adrift in a galaxy no longer tethered to its own systems, not attacked, not conquered, just abandoned. The orders came 12 hours after the galaxy went quiet. With systems collapsing across trade sectors, manufacturing worlds going dark, and no sign of re-establishing control, the Council authorized what remained of its unified command to do the only thing left: search, not for retaliation, not for victory, for answers. And so the fleet turned toward the last place humans had been seen not as ghosts, but as governors, Eridan Prime. The fleet emerged from slip space over Eridan Prime in perfect formation. 60 vessels, representing 14 species, a forced unity bound by desperation. Cruiser silhouettes framed the starlight, flanked by scout frigates and orbital recon platforms. The mission brief had been explicit. Locate any trace of human presence. Re-establish control. Understand the silence. High Marshal Velkir Thas, commanding the Joint Task Force from the bridge of the Vascari Dreadnought Torrenth's Reach, stood motionless as the viewport adjusted to full magnification. What he saw was nothing. The orbital lattice above Eridan Prime, once the most active trade hub in the midline sectors, was in slow, uncoordinated drift. Dozens of satellites spun freely, their gyroscopic stabilizers long since disengaged. Some rotated end over end like wounded prey, others pulsed dimly, solar arrays warped or misaligned. "Commander Brask," Thas said, voice gravel through his translator collar. "Bring up the station registry. I want a system map of everything left in orbit." The Krell officer tapped across his interface. "No functional registry, Marshal. Beacon index is corrupted. Orbital grid not responding to handshake protocols. It's not offline. It's unrouted." Thas turned toward his tactical display. The entire orbital net glowed in red outlines. Not disabled, not destroyed, just disconnected. Below them, Eridan Prime spun with indifferent precision. From orbit, it still looked like the jewel of the corridor. Oceans of dense green, megacities built into mountain ridges, solar farms arrayed like patterned scars across the desert belts. But there were no comm signals, no flight traffic, no atmospheric shimmer from the lift arrays. "Launch recon sweep," Thas ordered. "Low orbit, full spectrum scan. Use species-dedicated probes. I want this verified without delay." The bridge ran like clockwork. No shouting, no politics, just control. But beneath the surface, tension hummed like a wire pulled too tight. Major Elio Rass of the Dravari Planetary Operations Corps stepped off the dropship with a pair of boots that sank 2 inches into the dust. His environment suit hummed softly in his ears, sealing out the thin, motionless wind. The landing zone had once been Trade Platform Corin 1, a massive cargo depot run by human crews, surrounded by auxiliary towers and shuttle silos. Now, it was a graveyard of structure. Not collapsed, not scorched, just empty. The loading cranes stood upright, powered down mid-motion. Cables hung where they'd been disconnected. The main terminal was sealed, lights off. Even the atmospheric scent was wrong. Filtered air without a recent exhale. No trace of combustion, no recent activity. Just clean systems waiting for commands that would never come. Rass moved through the main concourse with a 6-man unit behind him. No resistance, no traps, no sign of evacuation, only absence. "Control, this is Recon Alpha. No contact. Visuals confirm total shutdown. All systems appear manually powered down. I repeat, manual, not damaged." A pause. Then the reply came from Torrenth's reach. "Proceed to the Central Administration Sector. Attempt access. Report any trace of human infrastructure." 2 levels beneath the surface, inside the Central Administrative Vault, the console screens flickered dimly under residual power. Major Rass stepped forward and touched one of them. It responded, but not with interface. Just a single line of corrupted code, repeated across all displays. System core. Signal. No route. Instruction set. Orphaned. Last admin. Earth ID 0. One of his officers, Lieutenant Harvin Jull, leaned closer. "It's not deleted. It's orphaned. That means the controlling admin, Earth, removed itself from the chain of command." Rass frowned. "Can we restart it?" "Not without the root key, which was theirs, and only theirs." Behind them, a deep hum activated. One of the systems, an emergency broadcast relay, had triggered. A sound, faint, echoed down the corridor. They followed it. On the far wall of a comms chamber, a hollow projector activated. No image, no emblem, just a phrase floating in standard script. Pale blue, silent. It looped every 7 seconds. "You knew exactly what you were doing." Rass stepped closer. "Is this a message?" Jull nodded slowly. "It's not directed to us. It's a trigger. Probably broadcasted when human root control was withdrawn." "Can you isolate the signal source?" "No, it's everywhere. Projected on a loop, piggybacked into the infrastructure. It's embedded in their departure." As they watched, the projection paused. Then a second line appeared beneath the first. "Now so do we." Ras felt something tighten in his chest. The room seemed colder, smaller. He opened his comm. "Hi, Marshal Thas. You'll want to see this." 30 minutes later, the command center on Torrent's Reach went quiet. The broadcast had been duplicated on every open channel within Eridan Prime's orbital radius. No encryption, no interference. Just the same two lines, timed, placed, inevitable. Then a third phrase emerged. No sound. Just this. "Now listen to the sound of our absence." And then, nothing. No static. No message. No signature. Just a comms line that no longer had anything to carry. Back on the surface, Ras stood at the edge of the trade platform, helmet off, the thin wind cutting across his skin. "Everything here," he said quietly, "was shut down on purpose. Nothing scorched. Nothing broken." Joel joined him. A ritual. Or a warning. They looked up together, past the hanging satellites, into the black beyond. No human fleet. No cloaked signal. Just the afterimage of something that had once been present in every system, every node, every decision, and now was simply gone. Not hidden. Gone. And the galaxy would feel that silence long before it ever understood what it meant. The command crew aboard Torrent's Reach stood in formation around the primary display dome as the signal lock stabilized. For 3 days, they'd scoured Eridan Prime's orbit and surface for any residual Terran presence. Hidden servers, shadow fleets, automated beacons, even fail-safes. But what they found was a dead echo. No protocols, no defense triggers, no sign the humans had ever feared this visit. Just patterns, dormant, intentional. All of it pointed to a single relic left behind like a fuse without a bomb. A relay node orbiting the planet's terminator line. It came online the moment they touched it. The hollow emitter activated in silence. No interface, no warning. Just light. High Marshal Velkir Thas didn't speak as the projection formed. It began as a sphere, rotating slowly, haloed in code strands trailing into space. The hologram hovered 3 meters above the command deck, visible across every ship in the fleet via synced channels. Its signal propagated outward, bouncing off comboys, pinging dormant relay lines, piercing dead orbital nets. Within moments, every species in the midline sectors received it. No signature, no watermark, just 3 phrases. The first appeared in white standard glyphs, then morphed. Dravari line script, Krell spires, Velmari waveform, and finally into every known council dialect. A single message, burning through translation. You knew exactly what you were doing. No sound, no motion, just words, spinning in the dark above a world they had once claimed together. Aboard the Vox Telmir, Fleet Admiral Ren Koss leaned forward, mandibles parted. "That's a council address structure," he muttered. "Encoded to register in every cultural matrix." Across the fleet, crews gathered. Bridges, ready rooms, engine cores. Orders stalled. Commands hung unspoken. Because it wasn't a threat. It was a mirror. On Torrent's Reach, the words faded. Darkness. 8 seconds passed. Then the second phrase lit the air. "Diplomacy died in the silence you created." This time, the line didn't rotate. It held, motionless, a wall that could not be argued through or bargained past. Every system froze, some by design, others by instinct. Auto-routing scripts halted. Tactical subsystems paused. Even the sensor arrays hesitated. Nothing crashed. The galaxy just listened. On the surface of Eridan Prime, Major Elior Ras stood at the edge of the platform, helmet off. The projection now hung above like a star. Lieutenant Harvin Jull stepped beside him, eyes upward. "They timed it," Jull said. "Even the silence between phrases." Ras nodded. "They weaponized the pause." Back in orbit, the third phrase emerged, not with flair, but as if it had always been waiting in the dark. 12 seconds later. "Now listen to the sound of our absence." And then, nothing. No static, no tone, no trace. Just a signal with nothing left to carry. On the bridge, no one moved. Krell Officer Brask shifted once, then stopped. Thas scanned the dome, every ship reporting back the same posture. Stillness, not empty, heavy. Outside, Eridan Prime turned on in silence, untouched, unattended. 60 seconds later, the emitter flickered. Not like it failed, like it was finished. And the projection vanished. No log entry, no shutdown queue, no record of it ever being sent. It existed only to say what it said, nothing more. High Marshal Thas looked around. No one spoke, no systems resumed. Not by order, by instinct. They had weapons, commands, coordination, but nothing left to target. The Terrans hadn't withdrawn. They had vacated, clean, deliberate. And in doing so, they left behind a silence louder than war. Far from Eridan Prime, across the exo-relays of the Suroth net, in mining cores on Carthan 7, across Veskar Prime's fractured finance clusters, and along the shattered rings of dozens of trade worlds, the message looped, sometimes visible, sometimes silent, sometimes as a whisper in forgotten AI cores. You knew exactly what you were doing. Now we do too. Diplomacy died in the silence you created. Now listen to the sound of our absence. Some systems tried to purge it. None succeeded. No inputs accepted. No responses returned. It didn't crash networks. It became part of them, until it was indistinguishable from the void it described. And across the stars, from counselor to janitor, admiral to archivist, the truth settled. They had never truly seen humanity, only its usefulness, only its presence. But now, in its absence, the message was undeniable. The humans hadn't disappeared. They had stepped back and let the galaxy hear what silence really sounds like. Hey there, space human. I'm really curious about your thoughts on this video. Drop a quick comment and let me know what's on your mind. Or just say hi if you prefer. Either way, I'd love to hear from you. Oh, and one last thing. Every great soldier knows that to survive and become a hero, taking care of yourself is key. So before you go, check the pinned comment. Trust me, it's important. And I've chosen another video for you to watch. Just click the card here, or here if you want the whole playlist. See you there.